Time for the crystal ball, Tim, with next-gen GPUs scheduled to come in the following months towards the end of the year. There will continue to be drops in the price of top end of this generation. How much do you think current gen cards at the top end would have to be to warrant buying now rather than waiting? For example, 3090 for maybe $600, given the 4070/7700 XT should be the replacement. So, yeah, I think our advice for this has been pretty consistent over the last couple of months. We've seen a few differing opinions lately, but certainly for our opinion is that you shouldn't be buying high-end cards at the moment. The value just isn't there at current pricing. They're still far too expensive, in my opinion, especially for products like 3090 Ti and 3090, which are still, well over $1,000 US. Doesn't make a lot of sense to buy those cards at that price, I don't think. I've always sort of been saying that tier lower pricing is potentially where it starts to make sense, ideally lower than tier lower. So that would mean a 3080 at the price of a 3070, so around $500 US, potentially a 3090 around the price of a 3080, which would be around $800 US MSRP we're talking about here, of course. Around that level, but probably lower than that level, is I think where the target sort of is, because typically the next generation of cards will produce tier lower performance. So what used to be 3080 is now hopefully going to be 4070 type performance, or even 4060, depending on how much performance they can gain. So you would definitely be wanting minimum tier lower pricing.
2080 Ti, 3070.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, I think the easiest way to put it is we've seen month-on-month price declines at the high end. That's where the substantial discounts have been at the high end, month on month. You've shown this.
Yep.
We're just months away now from the next generation cards. That is probably the point where I would be making my purchase. We know the
announcement.
We know pretty well for a fact that there are so many 30 series cards that they're probably not going to be able to sell them all in time. They'll still be on sale at discounted prices well after the next generation arrives, which again we expect to be in a few months based on what we're hearing from multiple different sources. So, in my opinion, it seems a bit crazy to jump the gun and spend like $1,500 US on a 3090 Ti right now, because we expect that to drop in price for the next update, and then it could drop quite considerably depending on what the next generation delivers. As soon as NVIDIA makes the announcement and they give some concrete numbers that look really promising, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just going to fall off a cliff like we saw the 2080s. That was a $1,200 card, which regularly sold. Was it $1,200? It sounds crazy saying that was $1,200, and it regularly sold for more than $1,200. And the second the 3080 was announced, what were they selling for? Like $400, $500?
$500, used,
crazy,
I believe.
Yeah, they just fell off a cliff.
I think the fear around the recommendations to sort of buy now or when to buy comes from the supply side of things, like the fear that you're not going to be able to buy a next gen card, which is then going to make current gen cards more expensive. But I think that is a pretty big misread of why cards were expensive previously. A lot of that was due to cryptocurrency mining, which isn't, at least it's looking very likely to be significantly less of a concern with the upcoming generation. So unless there's a massive U-turn in not even just cryptocurrency pricing, but the actual profitability, which is the thing that matters, if that U-turns, then maybe it'll be an issue. But I certainly think we'll be in a situation with this GPU launch that's more like GPU launches prior to this current generation, more like 20 series, 10 series, those sort of launches,
which means
cards aren't going to be available for a few months, but not for years.
That's the important thing to be aware of, guys. When these new cards come out, they are, without a shadow of a doubt, going to sell out instantly. And it'll be, I would say, historically it's been a minimum of 2 weeks before you can sort of start to get them. I would be thinking more like 4 weeks at this point. So when the new Radeon or GeForce GPUs come out, if you're not scrambling, fighting tooth and nail to get your hands on one, you're going to have to wait a month or two, which not the end of the world, and probably a smarter thing to do anyway, because, hey, sometimes there's driver issues that need to be sorted out before you're not having your games crash over and over and over again. So my advice would be sit back, relax, watch the reviews, see how it plays out, and get a card then, because we don't expect cryptocurrency to cause any headaches
Mm.
early on, at least.
Yeah, I think for buying this current generation, there's kind of two windows that I'd be looking at as sort of the target for when to buy and when we expect pricing to be at that tier lower or even lower level. And that's in between when the next gen cards are announced and when they launch, because that's when, as you say, the panic will ensue from existing owners where they'll want to sell as high as possible before the next gen cards come out and ruin their party a little bit. Then I expect that there'll be a period when the cards aren't available, as you've been talking about the next gen cards, where pricing on the older models will probably be pretty stagnant because new models aren't available. The old models are kind of serving the market during that period. And then once the new generation cards start coming into stock again, that's when you get the final sell of the old models. And that's when they'll really start hitting basement prices. So you're kind of looking at in between the announcement and the release. And then once we get wide availability, that's when I believe you'll get the best deal on those GPUs. And that's historically been the case pretty much every time except for this past generation. So fingers crossed that's what happens again at the end of this year.